What's good, everybody? Today we're going to be reacting to Saurus's video right here. Where did it all go wrong? Wuthering Waves 3.0 Act 1 review. And as you guys know, I am someone who has also been pretty critical of 3.0 so far when it comes to Wuthering Waves, and I got a lot of backlash for my video, but at the same time I also had a surprising amount of people being very supportive of the takes that I was making. Okay, very supportive. And I kind of make this opinion since, you know, Wuthering Waves has gone down this route of ever since they removed companion stories from the quest, they have made character stories the main focus of the quest line, and it kind of reduces the overall plot and what actually happened to the world building around with the story. And I think it gets a little bit, there's a sacrifice going on here. So I've already kind of felt this way about 3.0. So I'm very, very interested to see what Saurus has to say about this issue. And I'm wondering if I agree or if I disagree and where we kind of line up on this, because I've been feeling this way about Wuthering Waves' story for a while now. Okay, I've been feeling this way for a while, and I want to, you know, give this in the most good faith possible. And I'm speaking as someone who is quote unquote supposedly a Kuro bot. I'm on the side of the Kuro bots, okay? And I'm also speaking out my critiques. So I'm going to give this a very, very fair shot, and we're going to see how it is.
I want to love Lynae, but so far, Kuro are making all the same mistakes. Ever since its launch, I've seen many people praise Wuthering Waves for its focus on being a game first and a gacha second. Much of what they've built has avoided the anti-patterns and manipulative practices which plague other popular gachas, including many key aspects of this new region. In some places, Lynae has been brilliant at the game part of the equation. But when it comes to the story, while several chapters of Rynae lived up to the game's potential, many were very clearly gacha first, game second. But there were reasons.
That's the problem that I have. A lot of things after 2.5, as soon as they removed companion quests from Wuthering Waves, I'm telling you, the quality of the overall main quest has been diminished. It's been, you're giving less to the actual players in terms of world building. I do still stand by this point.
To hope the new region would flip that on its head and finally leave those storytelling flaws behind. Instead, it left me incredibly disappointed. Before we get to any downsides, let's acknowledge Wuba Story's greatest strength, their presentation. Even
100%.
1.
They've improved the cutscenes a tremendous amount in 3.0. Okay, the cutscenes, the design, the lighting, the atmosphere, everything is so much more cinematic, and they've done a fantastic job with that.
When other parts of the game were at best unpolished, Kuro absolutely knocked this aspect out the park. The cutscenes are incredible, of course, and gain a ton of attention and well-deserved praise. They're always beautiful and fluid, and they'd feel right at home at the climax of any top-tier animated film. And they've improved over time. The seamless mix of 2D and 3D animation to give the final battle of Rynae that extra oomph was utterly stunning.
It was very pretty. It's enjoyable to watch. The visuals are spectacular. I don't think anyone's denying this. Also, the sound design and OSTs for Woowa as well are top notch. The OSTs are great and amazing, and sometimes you just want to turn your brain off and just look and enjoy it, something cool. It's kind of like how I said this in my original video. It's kind of how I appreciate like shonen in anime. Like the power scaling, sometimes the plot is kind of doesn't really make that much sense, but you just like nod your head and say yes because like it looks cool and it's enjoyable. You know what I mean? Or like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Like you're not really supposed to question the how and the why at all. You just kind of accept it for what it is and enjoy the silliness of it all, you know?
For example. But for me, the cinematography during their in-engine scenes was always the thing that made it stand out. Careful use of camera angles, focus, and framing to emphasize the story being told is often neglected in games, especially when they can lean into those hype moments to distract from the flaws elsewhere. But Wuwa's is almost always immaculate. It's often hard to tell when a pre-rendered cutscene ends and where the in-engine dialogue begins, and it makes the whole experience feel like you're watching a polished movie. In Lynae, the presentation,
especially the aspect ratio changes, like damn, they go full cinematic,
meets these expectations. The cinematography and cinematics are again fantastic. It helps that the city itself is gorgeous and the landscapes around it are lush, and they've done a surprisingly good job of populating the academy with people, with ambient dialogue which makes it feel like a bustling university. I just wish the story they were telling lived up to its presentation. As I explored,
I feel like I feel like someone is going to speak to my soul of what I've been feeling this whole time.
In my
I'm already getting that.
retrospective, Kuro proved that at their best, they can tell a fantastic story
I haven't actually seen this video from her, so this will be interesting.
in isolation. Cartathia's, Lupa's, and Frolova's in particular were amazing, and each showcased a completely different type of story too. But they have consistently struggled with two key things: introducing new
Trauma
characters
bonding.
and tying narratives together. Their introductions tend to feel rushed. They want to skip any getting to know us phase and jump straight to the rover being the center of the new character's world. They have at least come up with a lore explanation for this, which means it technically makes sense, but it makes any friendships feel unearned and hints at anything deeper.
This was the problem that we had with Chisa, okay, in 2.8. Like when we had the scene with the rooftop with her, or one of our like dates, I kind of said, I feel this intimacy is not earned yet with these characters. With Lynae, it's a little bit different because she kind of inconvenienced us, right? She almost like killed us, right? She almost killed us with her bike. But I think this didn't impact me as much with her introduction. I thought it was okay. But this is a recurring thing with Rover. Like, he gets to know people very quickly. There isn't a sort of, you know, establishing each other at any point. But I don't think I was too bothered by this with Lynae, but I do agree that it happens.
Even worse. This is where the gacha first, game second feeling kicks in for me. It stops feeling like a natural, believable story, and instead I can almost hear them saying, "Look at this shiny new character, don't you want to spend money on them?" I think it's pretty telling that the chapters where they let things take more time are also the ones where people feel a deeper connection to the characters involved.
Like, think of Cardathia. The Blessed Maiden was a theme that was hinted throughout the entirety of 2.0. The ending scene where we see like the prophecy of the Blessed Maiden, of Cardathia, of Fleur-de-Lis, understanding they're both the same, seeing her at the very end of the quest and her projection, right? And then we go further in and we learn more about her and Chikona and her, and we go to like a different time where we're able to talk with her, and we build up a relationship in 2.2 with her, and we go along. Like, she will spread all the way through 2.0 until we meet her in 2.2 and then have a whole like basically thing with her. Like, we spent so much more time learning about Cardathia and understanding what she's about before we met her, and I think that was important. But I think that was unique to Cardathia and her being a sentinel resonator, right? Lynae is not the same as Cardathia. She's not a sentinel resonator. She is not the main focus in the same way, and I'm kind of sad they're not doing that with Amith now. I am kind of sad we're not hinting at it even more in the main quest like we kind of did with Cardathia. That's the fairer comparison, I think. Comparing the way they told Cardathia's story to Amith, I think is more fair than comparing Cardathia to Lynae. I think Lynae you could compare more to, like, I don't know, like Carlotta, for example, of how they introduce her. But even then, like in 2.0, Carlotta was only in the main quest a little bit. In the first act for a couple minutes, you saw her here and there, but you weren't immediately greeted to her like you are with Lynae.
Which build up over a longer period of time. Those are the patches where people cared the most, where the community felt alive with discussion, where the future of the game felt bright and vibrant. And when it comes to tying narratives together, I found it increasingly frustrating to see them create so many interesting setups which I really wanted them to explore, only for them to just drop them like a forgotten toy. Cardathia and Frolova are the big exceptions, and again, for me at least, this aspect of
they are the most significant to the lore and story, right? Like Sentinel Resonators, Frolova, Fraxidus member, they are the polar opposites like of each other, and I understand why they had the most attention because they matter more in the story. So I think the fairer comparison would be to compare how they tell Amy's story to Cardathia's and introducing her, and I think they're already kind of failing at it a little bit, but we'll see.
How they were handled is a major reason they stand out so much as the highlights of the game so far. As I said in my retrospective, even when all our friends showed up for the finale, it felt forced and unsatisfying because I don't want the characters to merely exist or even just participate.
Yep, it's a cheap way. It was a cheap way. Like, again, it was emotional. It made me emotionally cry because we're approaching the end of the whole 2.0 arc. But when I sit down and think about it, it's like they're just kind of there. They're just there. Like, Carlotta's never interacted with, like, on Augusta. Carlotta barely still interacts with, like, Cantarella. Chi Yuan just kind of, like, turns up and pieces out. It's like,
want their stories to continue. I had wished for more of that even early on in version 2, but through the final patches of Renacita, it was a constant.
Like fuck. Kalkaro's just like there too. Like there's no, what reason does he have to be there apart from he's a Black Shores member, right? Like what? Like why? We get nothing really. Like it's just so interesting.
Disappointment. No Lupa in Septimon's second patch. No exploration of Augusta and Yuno's new friendship after Yuno was deleted from everyone's memories.
It didn't matter. It didn't matter in the end. I literally said this. It didn't matter. It literally like it never fucking mattered.
No true reunion between Augusta and Galbrina.
What I've been saying too, like 2.7 was just like, okay, Galbrina is here to kind of fix the problem. She knows what to do. She's like fixing the problem, and then she doesn't barely interacts with Augusta at all. And they're supposed to be like childhood friends.
This tendency was encapsulated by those scenes during the finale where all these characters had come to help and they just stood in a half circle, every last one of them facing Rover, the center of attention. But right at the end, despite how rushed our friendship with Chisa felt, I did feel a spark of hope for Lynae on both these points. First, even though it seemed a little odd that our godlike millennia-old protagonist would be going back to school, it's hard to think of a better setting to help Kuro finally get the hang of groupings.
Being a student, what happens when you go to university? What happens when you go to high school? You make friends. You interact with a group of people around you. You make relationships with students, with teachers. You interact. That's what you wanted to see, right? That's what I'm saying. Like at the end of 3.0, what did I say? I really wish we got to like be a student or like do anything a student would and interact in a student way. That's what I literally said.
And maybe some more gradual growing friendships. Education shoves students into a classroom together and forces them to interact, not only with one another, but also with teachers and other staff. And so many of the most popular tropes in that setting involve relationships which change over time. Surely, Kuro would dive into some of those. And second, Chisa felt perfectly placed to kickstart a more connected narrative.
Thank you! Thank fuck someone else with a brain is saying what I've been saying as well. I finally don't feel like I've been going schizo crazy. Chisa was the perfect person to kind of take this whole thing with us. And she was reduced to optional fucking dialogue when we were there. You didn't even have to talk to her.
She was already a student from Lynae, but much would have changed during her 20-year absence. A perfect excuse to have Rover and Chisa stick together and team up with—
Exactly! They figure out stuff together! But no, she was reduced to optional dialogue.
one or two new characters.
Anyone who's telling me, but what could Chisha could have done? She can't do combat. I don't care if she can't do combat or not. Explore the fucking, like, grounds together. Something together.
Just as they explore their new surroundings.
Honestly, every single person who said I was crazy for wanting more Chisa in the 3.0 thing, fuck you. Y'all don't know what you're talking about.
Compare to things which were different back then and start to get those friendships growing. And not to mention the emotional payoff to her story, her reunion with her parents. Sadly, it did not take long for that hope to fade. The early part of the quest felt promising. The presentation was fantastic, of course, and I was glad to see Lynae given hints of depth straight away. She presents herself as a happy-go-lucky and friendly face, but that's clearly a facade and there was something sus going on. The introductions of both Mornier and Luke were intriguing too. They both clearly knew the rover in the past, adding subtext to their interactions, which makes me want to know more about them, their history, and Rover's past interactions in Lynae. We didn't actually make it to our first class in the first entire act, however, so even though the academy feels vibrant and full of life, this part of the story was entirely focused on Lynae outside of those brief introductions. Which,
because
unfortunately,
Wuthering Waves is a character game first.
Means that Chisa was completely sidelined, and the way they handled her makes me doubt they'll make the most of her in the upcoming quests. It bears repeating that I was one of those who felt her story in 2.8 was poorly executed and her relationship with the rover rushed, and while I hoped she'd get us familiar with the academy just because it would have been more coherent storytelling, I don't feel all that much towards her personally. That said, the way her reunion with her parents was brushed aside in a single sentence confirmed that Kuro really—
In optional dialogue! Optional! You didn't have to do this! They're totally fine with you not even knowing anything about her with this.
don't give a shit about their characters unless they're selling them to us right at that moment. This has been a constant issue in the past, but this was by far the most jarring case. It was the definition of gacha first, game second, and it shatters the illusion of the story. If Kuro don't care about their own characters, why should we? It's possible that she'll return and be more present once we actually start going to classes, but at this point I would be unsurprised if she's taking a different course or something like that, and we never
really see much of her.
Occasional cameos. Hell, I expect Lynae to be in a different class as well. And while I found Lynae intriguing at first, even though this entire quest focused entirely on her, her character ended up kinda falling apart for me. Again, the way they presented it was really good. The pacing of the story was engaging, they did a solid job of slowly revealing her backstory and her current situation, and it all built up to an exciting finale. Her backstory is the key to understand why she felt off to me. Lynae is from the New Federation, which is presented in her flashbacks as a harsh and cutthroat city where only the ruthless survive, especially in the mercenary subculture she grew.
I do like the references to New Federation. Like, this is definitely the area we're going to be going in, you know, after Lynae or like after the collab or whatever it is. This is going to be the next place we go to is New Federation, and I'm very excited for that. I'm very excited for it, and I liked the hints to her past. Like that, I don't really have much of an issue with that.
Rob within. She found a murdered body in an alleyway and realized the dead girl's invitation letter to the academy could be her ticket to a better life. But it turned out that the original Lynae had been a Fractidus spy tasked to infiltrate the academy. Since her arrival, she's had to string the Fractidus along while secretly working against them and hoping to find her way to freedom. This is an awesome backstory which sets up a kick-ass character, but the more time we spent with Lynae, the more it felt like they failed to commit to this. Think about it. What is Lynae's true personality? Her story works great if she genuinely
We don't actually know the real Lynae. It felt kind of like... It's like we're selling Lynae, but like we don't know Lynae. They're just kind of selling her backstory of like they're just selling the story of her in this. They're not actually selling her. Does that make sense? They're selling her backstory of like she is basically cosplaying as a dead girl. That's essentially what it is, right? She's cosplaying as a dead girl to try and take down the Fractidus like in some way. And for her to be able to live her life in Star Torch. But we don't really know Lynae. We don't know her at all. She's just like, her whole thing is cosplaying a dead girl.
Mercenary, and her soft and friendly side is mostly a persona. This feels like the only way her history makes sense. Any softness would have been beaten out of her by her harsh, traumatic childhood. But
yeah,
instead,
she's a mercenary, right? She grew up in the roughness of New Federation.
The more time we spent with her, the more it felt like they were trying to present her innocent persona as her true self. After all, if she was truly a competent and ruthless merc, why would she be afraid of being sent back to the new Fed? If she's so resourceful, would she not be able to just go start over someplace completely new? Her fear does not fit her story, yet it was presented as her central motivation. If I'm being charitable here, perhaps what they were trying to do was say this is a side of her which she's finally discovering now that she's in a safer environment. But while that could be a fantastic arc for a character to experience,
I think that's what they were going for, right? That she ended up loving the life that she stole. She ended up loving the life that she stole, and she's doing it for more than getting back at the Fractidus. She's doing it because she wants to be there. But we never feel that because the entire story is about her dealing with the Fractidus.
This single quest was far too small a time in which to tell it. Instead, for me, it came across as if they were trying to combine two characters, one a ruthless killer, the other an innocent and empathetic damsel forced to do a bit of murder to survive in this harsh world, and it just left her feeling incoherent instead. And when it comes to the consequences of the story, once again, they completely wiped away such interesting sources of ongoing conflict. The tension caused by Lynae's life as a double agent could have built up over time and been a fantastic subtext to all her interactions with other characters in the future. It would have given her an interesting story which lasted beyond this initial act, which could...
Yeah, like we know her kind of like secret, and it plays in over time. I do like that. I do like the aspect of it, like how would it affect her relationship with all the other staff going forward, trying to subtly uncover like a Fractidus plot without trying to like alert anyone to it.
have tied together with future characters in ways which...
But instead, like, it's immediate. It's like, oh, we know what she's trying to unfill Frax's plots, and immediately we're greeted by her interactions with the Fraxes, and it kind of gets resolved or sorted, like, immediately. It's like it never really fucking mattered.
Make the whole thing come alive. Instead, it gets resolved in no time at all as a final payoff after the climax of the story.
Exactly. It's like here's a problem, immediate solution. And that's like the same thing happened in 2.7 with Galbrenna. We have a problem, she immediately solves it for us. Like, this is the continuing problem that's happening in Wuthering Waves right now. I completely agree.
Mostly done, and the only important thread left is the existence of her hidden Fraxes contact. And of course, there's no reason we can't hunt them down without her. I don't understand how anyone who actually likes Lynae as a character could be satisfied with this. Wouldn't you want her story to continue? This is where the argument of those who defend Gacha first storytelling falls flat. Even for people who do enjoy gathering their wives, in the long run, this approach will leave them feeling empty. And it wasn't just the way they handled Lynae.
They're good for about 4 weeks on their banner.
Two of their bad habits in previous regions were their tendency to speedrun introductions and to rely on hype moments to carry their stories.
Because you only got 3 hours with them. Take it or leave it.
Were often rushed, but the world building was given a little more space to breathe. Rinasita's first act did a good job of building up the world.
Thank God! Literally what I said. Literally the first act of Rinasita, you built up so much. They built up so much, like, lore and story in the first act. Literally what I've been saying. And they don't do that with Laharoi.
Introducing several groups of characters and setting up various factions and conflicts between them, which made the world feel rich and alive. Septimond was done well too. We got a feel for their culture straight away, but discovered greater depths throughout the story. Laharoi's first act instead focused way too much on Lynae, and as a result, we got just surface level impressions about the academy and the other people there. We've met a couple of teachers and the academy doctor and learned some history about its founding, but far too little about their work in the present day.
Thank you. Bro, I'm feeling so vindicated right now. My PP is hard. I'm feeling so vindicated.
Culture, their internal conflicts and challenges.
This is 100% confirmation bias at its fullest right now. I'm experiencing mass confirmation bias, 100%.
The place feels alive because they designed and built it well, but the story has not revealed any depths yet. We can hope this is because they're taking it slow, with more depth and conflict to be revealed in future chapters as we start to take part in the Academy's daily life. But that's not how it came across to me. It felt like they were just so focused on pushing Lynae into the spotlight that they forgot to set up the rest of the stage. And that
I agree, because they've the way that they've done it is there's a lot more NPC dialogue, there's a lot more like side quests, there's a lot more other things to do outside the main story. But the problem is the main story is the only place where most of the people will play the game for. Most of the people are going to do the main story of the game. That's where you have to tell them the important things about the world. That's where you have to show them things. That's what most people are going to experience. You have to include it in your main story. Just reducing it all to NPC dialogue, well, yeah, it's there if people want to go and look into it. It's not the same. You don't have the same stakes. It's not as time gated. Like, you have to include it into the things that people are going to experience when they play your game.
Desire to plant the focus entirely on the banner character led to the finale falling flat to me, despite its awesome cinematic. Every step along the way I was wondering, why was it only Rover and Lynae who fought the worm? Sure, the Academy...
Where was Lucilla? It's like my tweet. Lucilla is the headmaster of the academy. There was no mention of her when it got attacked the first time by Hyvatia. Instead, Lynae got interrogated by like an NPC. And then where is she when it's about to be fucking destroyed? Not even a mention of the president or whatever it is of fucking Star Torch Academy. Where the fuck is she? It's just Lynae and Roa that solves the problem. It's literally what I've been saying since the beginning.
Defenses had gone down and they were scrambling to get everyone vulnerable back to safety. But it could have been a perfect moment to showcase the Academy's strength. This is a high-tech school filled with the most talented
Again, their experience with void worms and void storm phenomenons, and they acted like they couldn't do anything about this. It's only Rover and Lynae that could have solved this. The whole purpose this academy exists is to study stuff like this. It doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense to me.
Fascinators from across the world, all working together to build the technology of the future. It would have been just as hype to see Rover and Lynae distracting the Void Worm at first, holding it off until the Academy's mechs were able to get over there and blast it into pieces. Instead, the Gacha came first, and it all had to hinge on Lynae to save the day. She
threw some fucking paint buckets at it, bro.
The whole crisis felt rushed and unnecessary in the first place. Hype moments feel earned when the story takes the time to build up towards them. Instead, this felt oddly hollow. A new region's introduction shouldn't need a dramatic, hype-filled climax. Meeting new characters and exploring a new world would have been more than interesting enough to carry a couple of main story quests on their own, and build towards much more satisfying story peaks in later patches. If they do feel the need to do this in every patch, the climax of the opening of a new region should at least set up future conflicts, but here it resolved almost everything they'd focused on so
immediately.
far. I suspect there are other...
The only thing they've set up is that there is going to be the solar event, right? Where they're going to replace the reactor drive. That's the only thing they've set up for future. Really. That's it. That's like the only fucking takeaway.
Motivation for all of that was to completely change the dynamic we can expect when Rover joins his classes. Before, Rover would have been just another student, forced to build up normal relationships with the others in their classes. They might have been a novelty if they were introduced into a class which had already started studying, but they would not have stood out all that much. Now, Rover is going to start as a celebrity, the new student who saved the entire academy almost single-handedly before they even took their first class. Average students are going to be in awe, teachers will be intimidated and impressed, Rover will wow them.
Exactly, we resolve nothing. No, we're talking about the immediate conflicts. The Void Worm happens and we immediately fix the problem. Hyvatia happens with the Fraxidus, we immediately fix the problem. The Void Worm happens, we immediately fix the problem. That's what we're talking about, where we resolve conflicts immediately that happen. The only thing that was set up is the solar festival where we're replacing the sun. That's the only thing that's set up for the future.
Everyone will clap. That will undoubtedly appeal to many people. To the rest of us, it's yet more wasted potential. And finally, it's worth quickly covering the other side of the gacha first, game second argument, the gameplay. When it comes to
we don't fix the problem because they're going to happen still. We just beat their asses. No, I don't think you understand. We blew up the Void Worm. We blew it up. There was a threat to the Star Torch Academy and we dealt with it. That's called resolving the conflict by definition. If you don't get that, then it cooked.
Thankfully, Wuwa have continued to make the mechanics available to all. The bike is a little janky at times with its tendency to get stuck on small objects and its cumbersome turning curve, but cruising through the gorgeous landscapes is a joy, and I've actually loved
it. It is fun. I prefer it to flying, low-key.
So far. Having seen Amyeth's gameplay, I really hope this isn't the start of them locking certain exploration mechanics behind new characters. It would make sense for us to gain access to the mechs once we're qualified to use them, which would then mean this is another more freeing mechanic available for free. If, however, it's exclusive to her, that's the first step down the wrong path in my opinion. When it comes to combat, on the other hand, I'd say Wuwa is just about balanced between gacha and game. They've done a good job of avoiding power creep so far, but it does seem to have started to tick upwards, and they're beginning to dial up the shill mechanics. They pour a lot of time and effort into making new characters flashy and exciting and fun to play, but the end games are still reliant on DPS checks where the real enemy is the timer. I still wish they'd bring back Virtual Crisis, since that's the most fun I've had in
I agree! Virtual Crisis, W!
Really, it all depends on the direction they take in the future.
Yo, Kurahime! Thank you for the sub, brother. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Even a little movement in the wrong direction could stray too far from the approach which granted them so much praise. I don't expect every patch to be a narrative masterpiece, but I would expect the first chapter in a new region to function as an introduction instead of an advertisement.
That's what I've been saying the whole time. That's what I've been saying. W.
Last year, Kuro seemed excited to introduce us all to Rinasita. They took their time to showcase all that they'd created. They introduced characters like Brant, Phoebe, and Zani, and even Kartathea in its debut patch long before their first release. They set up factions and conflict and mysteries for us to uncover. In Lynae's first act, all that was overshadowed by Lynae. The only real difference this entire story made is that Rover is, once again, the hero of all things, the center of the world. I'm not against a story where that's the end result, but when it's this unearned, it just ends up feeling hollow. I guess we just have to hope that the second act will be a little different. Until next time.
I'll be real. I agree with like 99% of what's being said in this video. Either way, I just feel like Act 1 is the literal introduction to the whole area. And that's where you should do your world building initially. Make people interested in the world around you, because guess what? The Exostrider, everything to do with it, everything to do with Lynae is so interesting. I actually think it's more interesting than knowing about Lynae's backstory, personally. Right? And I wish that was part of the main quest, but they won't, because she's right. It is character first, game second. She's not wrong with that. And I feel very vindicated with this video, and I agree, and a lot of you guys seem to agree as well, so I appreciate y'all. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Go subscribe to Saurusness. This was an amazing video. I appreciate y'all. I see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Twitch.tv/CaptainCabinetz, Captain Cabinetz.